in the ancient lands where the red sun rose slowly over the wide savanna, and the morning wind carried the scent of wild grasses, there lived a young woman named Nea, whose heart was as steady as the river that curved through her village. Her footsteps were light, her laughter warm, and every elder said she walked with the quiet blessing of the ancestors, for the spirits listened when she spoke, and the earth softened beneath her feet. But her life changed on the day a man named Kumo stepped into her world. Kumo was known across the hills as the hunter whose arrows never missed, and the drummers always sang his name during festivals, because he moved like a lion in the tall grass, always smiling, always bold, always seeking adventure. Yet no one expected the strange path that fate would weave between him and Nea, for it began with a joke one evening, when the stars opened their bright eyes in the sky, and the fire crackled loud enough for the spirits to hear. The youth of the village gathered around the flame, telling stories, and daring one another to speak truths or secrets. Kumo, with his fearless grin, rose to his feet, and pointed at Nea, who sat quietly weaving a small basket with her gentle hands, and with a playful voice he said, "Before all I should marry Nea. She will be my wife." And the laughter rose around him like a whirlwind. The boys clapped, the girls giggled, the elders shook their heads knowingly, and even Kumo himself laughed as if he had said something foolish and light. But Nea did not laugh, she simply looked at him with those calm eyes that never rushed, and the night wind stirred her braids softly, as if the ancestors whispered her a warning. In that moment, Kumo bowed with exaggerated playfulness, and said, "Yes, Nea, I am proposing to you right now," and everyone roared with more laughter. Yet Nea only smiled, a slow, deep smile that held no answer, and gave no meaning, and the firelight danced across her face like a hidden secret. After that night, nothing seemed to change, for Kumo continued walking through the village, boasting about his hunts and laughing with anyone who would listen. But sometimes when he passed Nea working near the river, he felt something stir inside him, a strange pull like an unseen hand brushing against his spirit, and he would hide his gaze, pretending he felt nothing, though he felt everything. But Kumo was stubborn, and he refused to think much of it. Meanwhile, Nea felt the earth shifting beneath her, as if destiny itself had turned its face toward her. The old women in the village sensed it too, for they watched her with careful eyes, whispering among themselves that the spirits were weaving a thread around her, a thread tied to one who did not yet understand his own heart. Many days passed, and one evening, during the season when the rain clouds hung heavy above the far mountains, Kumo had a dream. It was not an ordinary dream, for the ancestors walked in it, draped in smoke and moonlight, their voices echoing like drumbeats across a deep cavern. They stood around him, forming a circle, and one stepped forward with staff glowing like firelight and spoke. "Hunter, you mocked what is sacred, you played with the path of the heart. Without respect you called forth a promise, even in jest. And the spirits do not take lightly the words spoken before flame and witness." Kumo fell to his knees in the dream, cold fear gripping him, as the ancestor continued, "Now the river of your destiny has shifted, and you must face the path you opened or be broken beneath its weight, for the heart you jested with is one protected by ancient eyes. Wake and understand." And before Kumo could speak, he woke, sweating, trembling, breath sharp. As if he had run from a lion, he sat up in his hut, hearing the night insects outside, and feeling the presence of something unseen watching him. He could not shake the echo of the words, "Mocked what is sacred," even in jest. The next morning, he walked to the elders seeking guidance. But before he spoke, they gave him long, knowing looks, as if they too felt the disturbance in the wind. Old Mother Teba, who lived near the sacred fig tree, touched his arm, and said softly, "The spirits have whispered your name in the night. You cannot run from this." Kumo, though he did not understand, he felt the weight of her words pressing deep into him like the head of a spear. He wandered for days, confused, restless, unable to hunt, unable to sleep, hearing the ancestors' call in every rustle of leaves and every roll of thunder, as if the heavens themselves demanded something from him. Yet he still did not speak to Nea, for something in him feared her calm gaze, feared what he might discover in it. One twilight, as the sun bled orange across the sky, and the cattle bells jingled faintly from the grazing fields, Nea walked toward the river to fetch water and found Kumo standing there. His face troubled, his voice unsure. He said, "Nea, about that night I spoke without thought." And she turned to him with the same calm eyes, the same slow, knowing smile, and he found himself unable to finish his words. She walked past him, dipped her pot into the water. River shimmered with a strange golden ripple, as if the spirits themselves touched its surface. Kumo felt weak, as if the earth beneath him shifted again, and he knew whatever force surrounded Nea was growing stronger, and he was at the center of it without choice. Many nights passed, and each night the dream returned louder, stronger, the ancestors no longer whispering, but calling him by name. "Kumo, your heart must kneel, or your spirit will break." And one night he could bear no more. He ran through the village, panting, the moon casting a pale glow over the sleeping huts, his chest heavy like a drum, and he stopped outside Nea's hut, unable to breathe, unable to think. except for the unbearable weight inside him. He called her name once, twice, and she stepped out wrapped in a cloth, her hair catching the moonlight, her calm presence washing over him like river water. And in that moment, all the pride, all the laughter, all the boldness that once filled him shattered into dust. Kumo fell to his knees before her, both hands pressed to the earth, his head bowed low the way a warrior bows before the altar of the ancestors, and the night wind grew still. As if the world itself paused around them, he spoke with a shaking voice. Nea, I cannot sleep, the spirits call me, the ancestors show me my foolishness, my heart is not my own anymore. I spoke your name without respect, and now it follows me everywhere. I beg you forgive me, guide me, tell me what the path is, for I cannot walk without your light. And Nea looked at him for a long, long moment, and then she smiled again, that same slow, deep smile, but this time there was something different in it, something ancient, something powerful, and the moonlight brightened around her. As if bending to her presence, she stepped closer, her shadow falling over him like a blessing. And she whispered only a few words, but they struck him deeper than any blade. You will understand soon, Kumo. And she turned and walked back into her hut, leaving him kneeling in the quiet night, his heart pounding, his spirit trembling as the ancestors breathed around him. And the shadows moved like watching eyes. And as Kumo lifted his head, the wind carried a strange sound across the savannah, the low rhythmic pulse of distant drums, though no drums were being played in the village. And he knew something had begun, something far older and far larger than his foolish joke, something he could no longer escape. Welcome to my channel, Black Woman Revenge Stories. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe. The days that followed were heavy with a strange tension that wrapped itself around the village like a mist, for every morning the wind moved differently, as if carrying messages from realms unseen. And every night the shadows seemed longer, darker, filled with whispers that only those touched by destiny could hear. Kumo felt it most, for each sunrise brought new signs that the spirits were watching him, guiding him, pushing him toward a path he did not yet understand. He woke with the taste of river water in his mouth. As if he had swallowed dreams, he walked with a trembling in his chest. As if his heartbeat belonged to someone else, he saw shapes moving in the corner of his eyes, shapes he could not explain. And whenever he passed the sacred fig tree, its leaves rustled with a low warning note. Even though the air was still, yet the strangest thing of all was Nea. For she moved through the village with a calm that felt ancient, her steps soft, her gaze steady, her smile carrying the quiet power of someone who had always known the truth. Before anyone else, the elders watched her closely, whispering that she was shifting like a spirit on the edge of revelation, and children, who once ran freely around her hut, now slowed when they passed her, sensing something in her presence, something glowing, something rising inside her. The land itself began to reflect the tension. Distant thunder rolled across clear skies, birds took flight. For no reason the cattle refused to walk near the river at dusk, and on certain nights an eerie golden shimmer glowed faintly on the water where Nea fetched her pot. Kumo grew more restless as each sign unfolded, for the dreams returned stronger, each time filled with ancestors circling him, chanting words he could not fully grasp, their staff light burning brighter, their faces hidden behind swirling smoke. He felt them pulling him, bending him, demanding that he surrender something he had always held tightly, his pride, his laughter, his indifference, his belief that the heart was nothing but a passing wind. One night, after many sleepless evenings, Kumo sat outside his hut, staring at the moon that hung low and red like a warning drum, as he watched a warm wind swept over him, carrying with it a faint voice, one he had heard, but never truly listened to, Nea calling his name, not with sound, but with spirit. He felt her presence like a pull, like the way the river pulls a leaf floating on its surface. He rose and walked through the village, the moonlight washing over his skin, until he reached the river, where he found her standing still as a carved statue, her silhouette framed by the shimmering water, her braid lifted slightly by the night breeze. And before he could speak, she turned to him, her eyes reflecting the moon in a way that made his breath catch deep in his chest. She said, Kumo, the ancestors whisper louder now. They have opened a path before you, but the path is not for the weak-hearted. And he felt his knees weaken, not from fear, but from the truth he sensed in her voice. The river beside them glowed again, with the same strange golden ripple, and the grass around them trembled softly, as if acknowledging her words. Kumo stepped closer, his voice shaking. Nea, tell me what they want from me, tell me why they haunt me. She walked slowly toward him, her presence calm and steady. And when she stood close enough for him to feel the warmth of her spirit, she said, because you spoke before the fire, before witness, before sky and earth. And when a man speaks before such powers, the words do not die, even if spoken in jest. The ancestors took your words as a seed, and now it has grown. Your spirit is tied to mine, and you must choose the truth of that bond or break beneath it. Kumo felt a chill move down his spine, her words echoing inside him like drumbeats in an empty valley. He had never believed in the binding force of words spoken lightly, never thought destiny could turn on something so small. But as he stood before her with the river glowing, and the wind rising, he knew nothing about this was small. He whispered, "Nea, I did not mean to bind us." She placed her hand on his shoulder, and the moment her skin touched his, a powerful warmth spread across his chest like fire. Her voice gentle, but strong, she said, "The heart doesn't ask permission to be bound, Kumo. It simply follows the truth, and your truth has started to awaken even if you fear it." He felt the truth in her words sinking into him like roots. Then she pulled her hand back and turned her gaze toward the forest where the trees stood tall and silent, their leaves shimmering faintly. The moonlight, she whispered something he could not fully hear, but the wind carried it to him, a warning. The forest spirits are restless, they sense the shift that has begun. Kumo looked toward the dark forest and felt a deep stirring in his chest, as if something inside him answered the call. The next morning, the entire village felt the shift. The sky carried a heavy grey glow, even though no rain threatened, and the livestock huddled close to their fences. As if sensing danger, the elders gathered beneath the sacred fig tree. Discussing the strange signs, some spoke of old prophecies about a hunter whose careless words would bind him to a spirit-blessed woman. Others spoke of ancient unions that could awaken forces sleeping beneath the earth. Meanwhile, Kumo tried to return to his hunting duties, hopping to distract himself. He walked into the savannah, arrows on his back, but the land would not let him forget every antelope. He aimed it, stared at him with knowing eyes before bounding away. Every gust of wind carried Nea's scent. Every rustle in the grass echoed the voices of the ancestors. He felt as if the entire land watched him, tested him, judged him. When he finally returned to the village, he found Nea sitting with Mother Teba the elder, whose eyes saw beyond the surface, her voice deep and steady. Mother Teba said, "Kumo, come closer." He obeyed, hesitantly feeling the weight of her gaze as she reached into a calabash, filled with white ash taken from sacred fire. She sprinkled some onto his hands, and watched the way it settled. She frowned. "Softly, the way fireless ash falls on your skin shows your spirit fights itself. You try to deny what has already begun." Kumo lowered his head, unable to argue. And Mother Teba turned to Nea, "You child carry something powerful, something ancient rising within you. Kumo must walk with you, or be swallowed by what comes, for this is no small journey." Iron Nea remained silent, her face calm, but her eyes holding an ancient light. Later that evening, as drums echoed distantly from another village, Kumo approached Nea again. He stopped before her, feeling smaller than he had ever felt, a hunter reduced to a trembling man in the face of something greater than any lion or storm. He spoke with a soft voice. "Nea, I do not understand what is happening to me, to us, to this land. But I feel it growing and growing, and I fear what my foolishness has started." She looked at him with that same slow, ancient smile, and said, "Kumo, it is not foolishness that guides you now, it is truth trying to rise within you. And when truth rises, it shakes everything around it like thunder before a storm." He felt her words settle into his bones like seeds, and for a moment he could not breathe as the earth humming beneath them seemed to grow louder. That night, the sky turned dark, though the moon should have been bright, and a low rumble moved across the horizon, as if something ancient walked through clouds. Kumo felt the ground tremble faintly, and he knew without question that this was only the beginning, for whatever bond he had awakened was stirring forces he could not yet name. And Nea felt it too, for she stepped outside her hut, lifted her head to the darkened sky, and whispered softly, "Ancestors, guide us, for tomorrow the path will open wider and the hunter must be ready." And the land listened, as if holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. The dawn that followed rose in a strange pale light that washed the village in a soft silver glow, as if the sky itself hesitated before fully waking, for something ancient moved beneath the surface of the land. And every creature felt it, even before the humans did. The goats stirred restlessly, the birds hid in the trees, and the river carried a deeper hum, a low vibration that trembled through its flowing body. Kumo woke with that hum echoing inside his chest like a second heartbeat, and for a moment he lay still, staring at the ceiling of his hut, feeling the silence around him stretch thin like stretched animal hide. Before snapping, he sat up, breathing heavily, trying to steady himself. But the air felt dense and warm, as if the ancestors stood close, watching him, waiting for him to move, waiting for him to choose. He stepped outside his hut and stopped, for the entire village was gathered in small clusters, whispering in anxious tones. The sacred fig tree swayed, though there was no wind, and the sky above carried a faint gold mist that shimmered like dust from another world. Nea stood beside the tree, her presence calm yet filled with a strange glow that made every eye turn toward her. Even the children stepped behind their mothers, grasping their wrappers tightly, as if shielding themselves from a power they could not understand. When Kumo saw her, he felt his breath catch in his throat, for she no longer looked like the quiet woman weaving baskets at twilight. She looked like someone the land itself listened to, like someone who had walked with the ancestors in old forgotten centuries. She turned her head slowly, and her gaze found Kumo's with a quiet force that pulled him forward without a word. The elders gathered in a circle, And Mother Teba stepped into the center, her staff tapping the earth, once sending a faint tremor through the ground. She raised her voice and her words rolled across the village. With the weight of thunder, the spirits have spoken through dreams, through signs, through the trembling of the earth. Young hunter, you have awakened a bond that belongs not to the playful heart but to the sacred heart. Yet it is not only you who carries a burden. Naya stepped forward. Naya did. And the moment she moved, every leaf rustled. As if bowing before her. Mother Teba lifted a bowl carved with symbols older than the village itself. And from it rose a faint silver smoke that twisted upward like living thread. She said, the ancestors have placed a mark on you, child, a mark that stirs the sleeping forces of the forest, and only a spirit-touched heart can carry such a mark. Naya closed her eyes as if knowing this truth long before it was spoken. Mother Teba turned toward Kumo, her gaze sharp like the talon of an eagle. You too are bound by this mark, hunter, for your words at the fire became a thread that the spirits caught and tied into destiny. You may try to break it, but the breaking will take far more from you than you can bear. Kumo felt his knees weaken, and the earth seemed to tilt beneath him. He wanted to protest, to explain that he had never meant for any of this to happen, but the ancestor's pulse in his chest beat louder than his fear, and he found himself unable to speak. Naya stepped closer to him, her voice soft yet carrying the power of distant thunder. She said, Kumo, the bond is not punishment, it is a call your heart must hear even if it resists. Kumo looked into her eyes, and he felt something shift deep inside him, something slow, heavy, and ancient like a mountain, waking from centuries of sleep. Before he could answer, a deep low rumble echoed from the forest. Every villager turned their head toward the dense green wall of trees that marked the boundary between human land and spirit land. The rumble grew louder, vibrating through the soil, until pots rattled, water quivered, and children cried out as mothers pulled them close. Mother Teba raised her staff. The forest calls, she whispered. And the spirits of the deep would awaken. Something has stirred them, and Kumo felt the words crawl under his skin, for he somehow knew the forest called for him, called because of him. The elders exchanged worried glances, and one said in a trembling voice, the last time, the deep wood called a hunter. The moon split in half, and the river turned black for 3 nights. And Naya lifted her head slowly, eyes glowing faintly. As if reflecting an unseen fire, she whispered, the forest knows the bond, it has felt it, as every spirit has felt it. Something in Kumo trembled so hard he thought he might collapse. Yet he took a step forward, his voice barely, holding steady. Naya, what does the forest want? Her gaze softened with something like sorrow, something like hope. It wants the truth, she said. The truth you fear, the truth you ran from, the truth you pretended was only a joke, the truth that now stands in front of you, shaking your bones. Kumo swallowed hard, though there was no moisture in his throat. He wanted to turn away, to run into the savannah, and never return, but the ancestor's pulse inside him pushed him forward, urging him to listen, urging him to face the storm he had created. As he stood trembling before Naya and Mother Teba, the ground beneath the sacred fig tree split slightly, a thin crack forming in the dry earth, faint golden light glowing from it, as if the land itself opened an eye, and watched him. The elders gasped and fell back, the children cried louder, and even the cattle in their enclosures bellowed in fear. Mother Teba placed her staff over the crack, sealing the light briefly, and turned to Kumo with a heavy voice. The path opens, hunter, you must walk it with Naya or not at all, for if one moves without the other, the bond will tear, and the tearing will shake the land with more force than this village can withstand. Naya reached out and touched Kumo's arm again, and he felt the warmth surge through him just as before, but this time there was something else, a pulse that matched the hum in the earth, matched the beat of the river, matched the whispering leaves of the forest, as if all of nature breathed with her. Kumo spoke in a shaky voice, Naya, what is happening to you? She looked down at her hand resting on his arm, and then at him, her expression calm yet filled with an old sadness. The ancestors are waking inside me, she said. They have chosen to speak through my spirit and through yours as well. Kumo felt the ground sway again, though it did not move. The world tilted around him, for he could not escape the truth rising like fire within him. For weeks, he had resisted the bond, resisted the pull, resisted the dreams, but standing before her now, sensing the ancestral power flowing through her veins, he could no longer deny it. Night approached slowly, and the sky darkened in a strange way, not with the coming of rain, but with the gathering of invisible forces. The air grew heavy, thick, with an ancient electricity, and the drums from a far village echoed in long, distant waves. Though no celebration had been called, some villagers retreated into their huts, afraid of the strange night. Others stayed near the sacred fig tree, watching Kumo and Naya with trembling curiosity. Naya walked toward the forest edge, her feet moving with the confidence of one following a path no one else could see. Kumo followed, though his legs felt weak. Fear gnawed at him, yet something stronger than fear pushed him forward. As they reached the first line of trees, a cold wind swept out from the forest, sending dust swirling around their feet. Naya lifted her hand, and the wind calmed instantly. As if it recognized her, as if it bowed to her presence, Kumo stared at her with wide, shaken eyes for no ordinary woman could command the wind with a mere motion. She looked at him and said softly, "The forest calls for your truth, Kumo. Nothing can hide from it, not words spoken carelessly, not promises denied, not feelings buried beneath fear and pride." He opened his mouth, but no sound came, and Naya stepped deeper into the shadows of the trees, her figure glowing faintly like the moon. Hidden behind clouds, Kumo followed, and the moment he stepped past the first tree, the night around them changed. The sounds of the village vanished behind them, the cricket songs grew slower, deeper, the air colder, the trees taller, the ground softer. As if threaded with ancient magic, the forest breathed around them, a slow, heavy breath, like a giant roused from centuries of slumber. Then a voice echoed through the trees, a deep, resonant voice that felt more like vibration than speech. "Hunter, your fear weighs on your heart, and your pride hides your truth." Kumo dropped to his knees, hands sinking into the moss, his chest tightening as the voice grew stronger. Naya stood beside him, calm, unmoving. "The ancestors have called you here," the voice said, "to face what you ran from." Kumo buried his face in his hands, feeling tears gather, though he did not understand why, for he felt a sorrow rising inside him, a sorrow older than anything he had ever known. The voice continued, "You jested before the flame, yet your spirit spoke truth now, that truth rises like dawn. No man can escape the sun." Kumo felt something tear inside him, not a wound, but a veil, something opening. Place he had locked away, and through it spilled fear, longing, confusion, and something deeper, something he had never dared name. Naya knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his back, and that single touch felt like a river of warmth rising through him, melting through the fear, burning away every wall he had built. And in that moment, he remembered her face in firelight, the calm in her eyes, the smile she had given him, the way her presence had always softened him, even when he pretended not to notice, and he felt the truth the forest demanded him to face, a truth his pride had buried for too long. He lifted his head, tears streaking down his cheeks, his voice weak and trembling. "Naya, I did not know, I did not understand. But now I feel it, I feel everything." The forest grew still, the air hushed, the trees listening, even the river in the distance quieted, as if waiting, and Kumo finally spoke the truth, rising like a dawn. He could no longer hold back the truth he had feared more than any lie. More than any storm, he whispered, "Naya, my heart has been yours from the moment I spoke your name. Even if I hid it, even if I feared it, even if I pretended to laugh its truth." The forest trembled with a low, ancient rumble. The bond had awakened fully. The truth had finally broken free, and nothing in the land would ever be the same after that night. The forest held its breath after Kumo's truth spilled into the air, as if every ancient spirit waited to see what would rise from his trembling voice. The trees around them shimmered with a faint inner glow, their tall trunks pulsing like giant sleeping hearts, waking slowly. Kumo remained on his knees, the weight of his confession pressing into the earth. Yet at the same time, something inside him felt lighter, like a great stone had finally rolled away from a path long blocked. Naya stood beside him, her presence warm, steady, and filled with a strange power that seemed to ripple from her skin into the moss beneath her feet. She looked at him with eyes that carried the depth of river shadows and the calm strength of mountain dawn. And when she placed her hand on his shoulder again, a sudden rush of warmth spread through him, not burning, not painful, but cleansing, like cool water poured over a fevered mind. Kumo lifted his head, searching her face for any sign of anger, confusion, or pity, but none rested there. Instead, her gaze held something softer, richer, older than any emotion. He knew something that reached beyond human understanding and into the realm of ancestral truth. She whispered, "Your heart has finally spoken the truth it hid. And the forest has heard it, the spirits have heard it, the ancestors have waited long for this moment. Now the path opens wider. But wider paths are never without danger." Kumo rose slowly, though his legs trembled, and as he stood, the forest shifted, the shadows leaning in with the leaves rustling with a whisper, and a faint trail of golden dust appeared before them, stretching deeper into the ancient wood. Kumo swallowed, the fear rising in him, though without dots or commas. Swallowing feels like a long, trembling breath, and looked at Naya for guidance. She nodded once, her braid swinging softly like the tail of a bird signaling flight, and stepped onto the glowing trail. He followed her, though every instinct in him warned that the deeper they went, the greater the threads of fate would pull at their spirits. The trees grew taller as they walked, their branches arching overhead like the ceiling of a great spirit temple. Shafts of pale gold light broke through in thin columns, dancing across the mossy floor in patterns that looked like ancient symbols, shifting, breathing alive. The deeper they walked, the louder a low humming grew, vibrating through the air, and into their bones. Naya paused and touched her chest, as if listening to a voice only she could hear. Kumo sensed her spirit pulling forward, drawn by some ancient call that echoed through her blood, and he moved closer, fearing she might slip away into the unseen if he let her drift too far. Then suddenly, the humming stopped, the forest fell silent, so silent that even their breathing felt loud and intrusive in the vast ancient stillness. Nea turned to him, her eyes glowing brighter than before, and spoke softly. "The heart truth you spoke has opened the gate. But now the spirits must test its strength, for if it is weak the bond will shatter, and the breaking will wound the land." Kumo felt cold air flood his lungs, though no wind moved. And before he could answer, the ground beneath them shuddered, not violently, but with a deep slow tremor that rolled through the roots of the trees, spreading like ripples in a water pool. Then the earth split open in a long curving line glowing with bright golden light, and from it rose a figure tall, robed in shifting shadows, and light a face hidden behind swirling mist, and an aura so powerful Kumo fell to his knees again, his breath stolen. By the force of its presence even Nea bowed her head, though she remained. Standing, the figure moved without footsteps, drifting forward like smoke, shaped into human form. Its voice flowed through the forest without sound. Yet Kumo heard it clearly in the chamber of his heart. "Hunter, you now stand before the ancient guardian of bonds, the one who watches over the threads that tie soul to soul, word to destiny, truth to consequence." Kumo trembled, the weight of his confession pressing harder now, as if tested against an invisible. The night fell heavy over the savannah, as if the sky itself feared what was rising from the old ground, and Io felt the weight of it pressing on his skin like a hand from the unseen world. He walked beside Nea, though she still would not look at him, and the wind dragged through the grass with the voice of distant ancestors whispering warnings that twisted through the air like trailing smoke from a dying fire, and the path that led to the forgotten hill shivered with old magic, the kind that elders feared to speak about even in a light, for it was said that the one who mocked a sacred bond would one day walk alone through shadows until truth tore open his heart. And now Io felt this truth unfolding around him as they approached the ancient stones, where the first promise of his people was once made, long before kingdoms rose, long before warriors learned the beat of the war drum, long before hunters carved their first arrows. The stones glowed faintly under the moon, and Nea stepped toward them with a calm that made Io tremble, for he knew now that she was not only the girl he had joked with, not only the one he had teased with a false proposal, but someone whose spirit was tied to something older and deeper than he had ever understood. Nea placed her hand on the first stone, and the ground hummed as though a sleeping beast woke under the earth. Io watched the glow rise from her skin, and he felt tears burn at the corner of his eyes. But he kept moving forward, for the ancestors were calling him too, and though he had betrayed the sacred way, they still offered him a path to redemption if his heart was strong enough to walk it. Nea finally spoke, her voice soft, yet filled with ancient power. She told him that the joke he made had awakened a chain that reached beyond human understanding, that the spirits of union had marked his words as a bond, and the ancestors of both their families had felt the insult and turned their gaze upon him now. He must face the test of sincerity, for no bond in their land could be mocked without consequence. The circled them like a ring of unseen dancers, and the stones pulsed brighter. The spirits of the hill rose slowly in shapes like drifting flame and mist, weaving around Nea and Io, as if studying their souls. Io felt their gaze pierce him, and he dropped to his knees, though not in fear, but in shame, for the weight of what he had done covered him like a cloak soaked in cold rain. He spoke with all the strength of his heart, telling Nea that he had spoken without thought, that he now understood the depth of what he played with, and that he would walk through fire, river, and night to prove that the promise he made in jest had become true inside him. He told her he loved her, and that he would stand beside her, not because the spirits demanded it, but because his heart now recognized her as the one his life had been waiting for. Nea did not speak. The spirits waited, the night held its breath, and Io felt the earth shift. As if it judged his words, the ground trembled lightly, and from the air came a warm glow that wrapped around Io, sinking into his chest and filling him with the weight of generations. The spirits acknowledged his honesty, but they were not yet satisfied, for they required action, not words. And the test began without warning. The glow of the stones dimmed, and darkness rolled over the hill, swallowing the moon, leaving only the deep echo of ancestral drums that beat inside their skulls. Io blinked, and found himself alone. The hill gone, the stones gone, Nea gone. He stood inside a vast forest, where the trees stretched so high they seemed to scratch the heavens, their bark glowing faintly with veins of moving light. The drums grew louder, and a voice rose within them telling him he must face the mirror of the heart, a trial only those with true intent survived. Io walked forward, the forest shifting with each step, the trees bending closer, the leaves whispering fears he had never spoken, each fear touching his ear like cold fingers. "You are not worthy, she will never trust you, your words are empty, your heart is weak, you are a joke." The spirit whispers hit him with each breath, but he kept walking, pressing through the heavy forest, until he reached a clearing where a pool of still water lay glowing with silver light. He knelt before it, and looked into the water, where his reflection began to change, showing every careless moment he had ever lived, every time he laughed without thought, every promise he made without intention, every wound he caused without seeing it. each image stabbed him deeper than any spear. And the voice of the ancestors thundered, asking if he could carry the weight of the promise he had awakened, asking if he was ready to live with integrity, asking if he was worthy of binding his life to Nia. Io bowed his head before the glowing pool, and whispered with the full truth of his soul, that he would not run, that he would carry whatever burden the spirits gave him, that he would protect Nia even if his life ended in the doing, and that he would never again treat a sacred bond as a toy. The forest fell silent, then light poured from the pool, rising like a wave of morning sun, swallowing him in warmth, and when the light faded, he stood once more on the hill before the stones, and Nia stood in front of him, tears shining in her eyes. The spirits drifted around them, glowing brighter than before, watching, waiting. Io rose slowly, and for the first time he truly felt the strength of his heart. He stood before Nia, and though his knees trembled, he lowered himself once more, not from fear, not from pressure, but from truth. He placed his hands on the ground and raised his eyes to hers, giving his vow with a steady voice that carried across the hill. As the spirits listened, he said he would honor her all his days, that he would never again let pride or carelessness wound her, that the promise once made as a joke now lived as the deepest truth inside him, and that he wanted to bind his life to hers, not for magic or fear, but for love that grew from the soul. Nia stepped forward slowly, her hand glowing as she reached for him, and the spirits began to circle faster, their light filling the hill until the night looked like dawn breaking, and as her hand touched his cheek, the stones erupted with ancient fire, and the ancestors announced that the final test had begun. The air trembled around the ancient hill as the final test awakened, and the spirits rose higher, their bodies swirling like wind, shaped into glowing forms, and the stones blazed with a fire older than kingdoms, older than the first story ever spoken on the land. And Nia and Io stood in the center of the circle, their shadows stretching long like roots, reaching for forgotten memories. The night deepened, though a strange light poured upward from the earth, turning the world into a space between life and spirit, a space where no lie could hide, and no heart could mask its true purpose. Io felt heat surge around him, not burning, but pure like the breath of the ancestors, brushy ng against his skin, and he knew this was the moment in which the spirits would weigh the truth of his soul, and decide whether the bond he now offered was worthy of acceptance. Nia stood before him, her eyes glowing like twin moons, carrying the wisdom of generations inside their depth, and she lifted her hands slowly, palms open, her fingers trembling slightly, as though she carried a weight no human voice could name. She told Io that the final test was not for him alone, but for both of them, for a bond required two hearts walking with equal strength and equal truth. The spirits answered her words with a soft hum that rippled through the air like the vibration of a great unseen drum, and the ancient fire grew brighter, spreading in a wide circle that closed around them, leaving no path of escape, and no place to run from what waited in the next breath. The spirits lowered themselves, until they hovered close enough that Io could feel the chill of their otherworldly presence touching the surface of his skin. Their voices rose together, a single voice made of many, echoing across the hill, and through the valley beyond. They asked Nia if she accepted the heart kneeling before her, not from his joke, not from his fear, not from the weight of the spirits, but from the truth that lived inside her own soul. Nia closed her eyes, and the wind wrapped around her like a protective cloak, leaves swirling at her feet, the scent of wild honey drifting through the air, though no tree nearby carried flowers of such sweetness. She placed her hand over her heart, and the world grew completely silent, even the insects, even the distant river, as if all creation leaned forward to hear her answer. Her voice rose steady, carrying a power that did not belong to youth, but to a lineage older than stone. She said she had seen the foolish boy he once was, she had seen the careless laughter that struck her spirit like a blade. She had felt the wound of being treated as a joke in front of the ancestors who guarded her footsteps. She had carried that pain inside her, walking with it like a hidden scar, but she also saw how he had changed, how he faced the mirror of his heart, how he walked through the forest of fear, how he bowed not from weakness, but from truth. She told the spirits she accepted the man he had become, and the man he promised to be. She accepted his sincerity, his courage, and the love he offered, not because he begged, not because he knelt, but because she felt his soul kneel before hers long before his body touched the ground. The spirits trembled, their forms flickering with light that rippled like the surface of a river touched by many moons. Then they turned toward Io, and the voice of the ancestors grew louder as they asked him one final question, a question deeper than any vow, deeper than any promise, deeper than any desire. They asked if he understood that a true bond was not fire and passion alone, but sacrifice, patience, devotion, and the willingness to walk beside another, even when the path grew rough and the nights grew cold. They asked if he would protect her spirit when darkness sought to weaken it, if he would stand with her when sorrow came, if he would hold her dreams as gently as one holds a newborn seedling. Io swallowed the weight of the question, and he felt the truth rise inside him like a tide, filling every part of his being. He lifted his head, eyes shining with the light of the sacred fire. He rose slowly, not to stand tall, but to meet her gaze, equal to equal, heart to heart. And he spoke from a place deeper than breath. He said he would honor her. Not only in words, but in every step he walked. He would shelter her. When storms came, he would celebrate her. When sunlight found her, he would guard her spirit as fiercely as a lion guards its pride. He said he knew love was not a joke, and never again would he allow his tongue to speak lightly of what the ancestors protected. He said he offered his life, his strength, his truth, and all that he would ever be. The spirits hummed with approval, and their light shifted from fierce flame to soft glow, bathing the hill in warmth like dawn arriving early. The ancient stones pulsed once more, and the ground beneath them opened with a gentle breath, releasing a stream of golden dust that rose in swirling patterns, weaving around their bodies. The dust wrapped them in a single shimmering veil, binding their spirits with threads of ancestral blessing. And the hill shook lightly, as if acknowledging the union that now formed in its sacred space. The spirits lifted their hands made of light and touched the foreheads of Nia and Io, sending a deep peace through their bodies, a peace that felt like belonging, a peace that felt like truth. Then the spirits slowly dissolved, returning into the wind, leaving behind only the glow of the stones and the soft hum of ancient approval. When the last wisp of spirit faded, the night returned to normal, the fire in the stones dimming until they resembled simple rocks under the moonlight. Nia stepped closer, and Io felt her fingers brush his, her touch soft, yet strong, carrying the quiet promise that no spirit could force and trial could carve. She whispered that she believed him, and believed in the man he had become, and Io felt tears slide down his face, though no tear made a sound, and no tear needed to be wiped away, for they fell like offerings to the earth that had witnessed his transformation. They walked down the hill together, hand in hand, the savannah stretching before them, the grass swaying gently. As if bowing in respect to the newly blessed bond, the elders waited at the foot of the hill, their torches flickering in the dark, their eyes wide with reverence, for they had seen the glow rise from the stones and knew the spirits had accepted what many had doubted. Io and Nia approached them, their steps steady and united, and the eldest among them raised his staff, tapping it lightly on the earth, which responded with a soft thrum, as though agreeing with the ancient rhythm. He blessed their union in a voice filled with age and wisdom, saying that a bond born from humility, sacrifice, and truth was stronger than a bond born from pride or beauty or desire. He declared that the ancestors smiled upon them, and the people of the village felt the air warm, as if the spirits nodded in agreement. Io looked at Nia and Nia looked at Io, and in that moment there was no joke, no wound, no fear, only a promise woven with spirit and heart that nothing in their world could undo. And as the torches flickered, and the savannah wind carried the scent of fresh earth and distant rain, Io understood the truth that would guide him for the rest of his life, the moral whispered by the ancestors themselves, that a careless word can break a heart, but a sincere heart can heal a life, and a promise spoken in truth will always be stronger than a promise spoken in pride. The morning after the blessing rose slow and gentle over the wide savannah, painting the sky in soft gold and quiet blue, as if the heavens themselves wished to honor the new bond forged in the ancient night. And Io awoke with the memory of the spirits still warm on his skin, their whispers drifting through his mind like feathers riding a calm wind. He stepped out of his small hut, feeling the cool earth under his bare feet, and for the first time the weight he carried for so long had lifted, leaving only a deeper strength in its place. The village stirred with life, goats calling from their pens, cooking fires, waking with the scent of maize and herbs, children laughing as they chased each other past the thorn trees, and elders sitting on wooden stools polishing memories while the sun rose higher. But the moment Nia stepped from her home, all life seemed to pause, because she carried a glow that was not from sunlight, but from the spirit fire still resting deep within her. Her presence felt like calm rain falling after a long dry season, and the villagers watched with quiet awe as she walked toward the central clearing, where Io waited. The elders had called for a gathering to seal the blessing with a communal witness, for no union touched by spirits could remain private. The land itself needed to hear the vow spoken aloud, and the people needed to see the bond that would shape future generations. Io stood in the center, his heart steady and full, and Nia joined him, her steps soft, as if she walked upon water, and the air around them shimmered, faintly carrying traces of golden dust from the night before. The elders formed a circle around them, their staffs planted firmly in the ground, creating a boundary of wisdom and age. The villagers stood beyond the circle, their eyes bright with curiosity and respect, for few among them had ever witnessed a spirit union, and none had seen one formed from a promise that began in jest, but grew into profound truth. The eldest elder stepped forward, his face carved with deep lines of time, his hair white as river foam, and he lifted his staff, slowly calling upon the ancestors with a voice steady as a drumbeat. The wind responded, twisting around him, lifting the dust Swirling patterns as though unseen hands joined the ceremony, the elder spoke of the night Io made his careless promise, the light-hearted words that carried unintended weight. He spoke of the wound Nia carried from the insult, and the path she walked with dignity and strength. He spoke of Io's journey through the forest of the heart, the trial that revealed the truth of his spirit. And he spoke of the acceptance granted by the ancestral guardians who watched over the land. Then he lifted his staff and asked the bear witness as Nia and Io gave their vow in the world of the living, binding their spirits in full balance. Io took Nia's hands, the warmth of her touch running through him like the first drink of water. After a long journey through heat, he looked into her eyes and felt the depth of her spirit, steady and kind. And unshaken by the trials they had faced, he spoke with a voice filled with the strength of the night, before he promised to honor her path, to defend her dreams, to listen when her spirit weighed heavy, to lift her when sorrow touched her heart, and to walk beside her, not ahead, not behind, but beside through every season of their lives. The villagers nodded, feeling the truth in his voice, and the wind touched his words, carrying them into the trees beyond, as if delivering them to the ancestors waiting unseen. Nia breathed deeply, then spoke her vow with a quiet power that washed over the clearing like a warm tide. She promised to stand with him in facing life, to offer him peace when the world felt heavy, to hold his name with respect and to protect the bond blessed by the spirits. She promised to see him not as the boy who once joked, but as the man shaped by honesty, humility, and growth. Her words wrapped around him like a cloak of light, and the villagers felt the ground shift gently as though acknowledging her truth. The elder raised his staff high, and from the sky drifted a soft shimmer like dust of the ancestors settling over the circle. The villagers gasped, for the blessing of the sky spirits was rare, and seen only when a bond carried the true balance of heart and intention. The elder declared their union sealed not only by human promise, but by the will of the spirits. Earth and sky, the villagers erupted in song, drums rising in deep rhythm, voices lifting proudly, filling the air with celebration that drifted over the wide grasslands and touched even the distant herds moving across the plains. Nia and Io stood in the center of the music, the energy of joy swirling around them like a living dance. Children ran past them, tossing flower petals into the air. Women clapped and swayed to the drum beats, and men raised their hands to the sky, acknowledging the blessing given that morning. Io felt warmth settle over his shoulders, as if the spirit of his grandfather placed a hand on him, proud of the man he had become. And Nia felt a soft breeze curl around her waist, like the embrace of long-gone mothers, guiding her into her new path. Together, they joined the celebration, moving with the rhythm of the drums, stepping into a dance that carried the movement of countless generations before them, their laughter blending with the song as though releasing the last trace of pain from their hearts. Later, as the sun reached its highest point, the elders invited the newly bonded pair to the ancestors' grove, a quiet place beyond the village, where the trees grew tall and thick, and the air always felt cooler, as though touched by the shade of ancient spirits. The grove was sacred, and only those beginning a new path in life were invited to enter. The elders walked with them in silence, their feet soft on the leaf-covered ground, the scent of old bark and damp earth rising around them like a comforting memory. When they reached the center of the grove, the elders stepped back, leaving Nia and Io to stand before the great tree, whose roots were said to touch the bones of the first ancestor. Its trunk was wide, its bark twisted into patterns that resembled faces formed from shadows and sunlight, and its branches rose like arms stretching toward the heavens. The wind moving through its leaves sounded like distant whispers. The elders instructed Nia and Io to place their hands upon the tree and speak one final promise, not to each other, but to the future that would grow from their union. Nia touched the rough bark and Io placed his hand beside hers. The tree felt warm under their palms and the wind stilled, as if waiting. Io spoke first, his voice gentle. He promised that the life they built would honor the lessons he learned. He promised to teach future children that words carry weight and that love must be held with care. He promised to guard the balance between heart and spirit, as the ancestors had taught him. Nia followed, her voice soft and steady. She promised to carry wisdom into their life together, to guide their path with compassion and strength, to keep peace in their home and wisdom in their steps, and to hold Io's heart with respect. In every season, as they finished speaking, the tree released a low hum that vibrated gently through their fingers, and into their chests. The leaves rustled though no wind moved them, and a golden feather drifted down from its highest branch, landing softly at their feet. The elders gasped, for the golden feather was a sign of blessing from the first mother spirit, a symbol given only to unions destined to bring harmony and strength to future generations. Nia picked up the feather, holding it gently as though it might melt in her hands, and Io touched it with reverence, knowing the gift carried a weight greater than any human could fully understand. The elders bowed and guided them out of the grove back toward the village, where the celebration still pulsed with life. The drums had not stopped, and the people had prepared a feast laid across woven mats, with roasted roots, fresh fruit, seasoned meats and bowls of rich soup, steam rising in fragrant waves. As they approached, the villagers cheered, raising their hands in welcome, and the feast began with shared laughter, shared food and shared blessing. Nia and Io sat together under the shade of a wide acacia tree, eating from the same plate as tradition demanded, symbolizing unity and shared path. The afternoon drifted into evening, and the torches were lit, casting warm circles of light across the village. The celebration eased into quiet songs, gentle drumming and stories told by the elders who spoke of the old times, when spirit unions shaped the destiny of clans. Io listened with awe, leaning lightly against him, both at peace and filled with gratitude. As the night deepened and stars filled the sky, the villagers departed to their homes, the elders offering final blessings before retreating into the shadows of their huts. Nia and Io remained under the acacia tree, the golden feather resting between them, glowing faintly under the starlight. The air was cool, the sound of insects soft in the night, and the scent of wood smoke drifted from dying cooking fires. Nia turned to Io and thanked him for walking through the trials with courage and honesty, and Io thanked her for believing in the truth of his spirit. Even when doubt had clouded their path, they spoke softly about the life they wished to build, a life shaped not by fear or past wounds, but by shared strength and purpose. And as they leaned their foreheads together, a quiet peace settled around them, one that felt like the final blessing of the long journey they had walked, from joke to wound, from wound to trial, from trial to truth, and from truth to sacred union. Night wrapped its calm around them, and the ancestors watched unseen, their whispers drifting through the leaves, approving the bond that had risen from ashes into flame, and from flame into enduring light.